And welcome into Poke the Bear episode 79, the Jeremy Lozon and U.S. Olympian David Warsofsky episode. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That is Conor Ryan. Conor, how you doing?
Evan, doing well. How you doing?
Doing better than the Bruins. Well, the Bruins didn't play on Tuesday night. They just had the Willie O'Ree ceremony, and then
They
it
just
was all
left.
great. And then they left. It was weird. They
I
just
mean, it
said,
was
"Well, we're
fitting,
not
like a
playing."
great honor for Willie. So it was good that
Yeah,
they just got out of there afterwards. So
yeah. Avoided
weird the
any
games
bad
didn't
things
happen
happening.
though. I know the schedule's kind of wonky going forward, but just got down there. I was like, oh, we're not. Oh, okay, bye. All right, see ya.
Not
See you
playing.
guys.
No, it wasn't a game. No, we're just gonna have the ceremony, and it was cool. It was a great, amazing ceremony. They just said, "No, we're not playing the game. No big deal." But in some ways, the Bruins didn't play a game on Tuesday night. They decided, we don't have to show up, right? We're just here to. It's like it's I've made this joke before, but it's like Detective Crashmore, Santa Claus saying he just gets us another 2 mil. It was kind of like that night. I just showed up, another 2 mil. Showed up, get my paycheck. But before we get into the debacle that was the game on Tuesday night, the Willie O'Ree ceremony was fantastic, and it is so long overdue that he gets his number 22 retired. The 12th number. I think it was Phil Esposito who said he's one of the dudes now. That was
Yeah.
pretty fitting. I like
Phil,
that as
Phil
well.
Esposito's got like now that he's down in Florida, has got like big like Pat Riley energy of like old dude like living it up in Florida. That's like what Phil Esposito is now.
Yeah, as he should. I mean, the guy
Yeah.
deserves it. Like you've earned it, man. But no, amazing ceremony. And they did such a good job. He wasn't there, but they made it very inclusive to him. It felt like he almost was there. And his speech was beautiful. I mean, you were in the building for it. What were your takeaways from it?
Yeah, no, I thought it was a very well done ceremony. Obviously it's unfortunate that Willie couldn't be there, but as you said, I think the whole ceremony itself, like his speech, which was, heartfelt, genuine, and if I think you've been lucky enough to meet Willie in the past, that's kind of the main describers of interacting with that guy. Classy, genuine, always heartfelt. So it's just a tremendous ceremony for him. As you said, long overdue for everything Willie's done, not just breaking the color barrier and the arduous journey he had to take to get there, everything he went through, but then to also play while being again legally blind in one eye and still having the career he did, whether it be with Boston or then over and I think the Western Hockey League as well. And then just not, it doesn't just end with his playing career and the journey he had there, but to then spend almost 3 decades continuing to grow the game and be recognized as a key builder. And I mean, you looked at not just the Bruins, but every other team in the league, I think, had on Willie O'Ree stickers. You saw multiple players of color, like, Wayne Simmons talked about how he was his idol growing up, how, like, he views him as like hockey's Jackie Robinson for the being that guy that not only was the first, black player in the league that had to deal with all those things, but for countless of generations after him, they could look to, a guy like Willie as a guy that finally made it. And for them, it gave them that, that tangible, proof that, they could follow in his footsteps and achieve their dreams too. So as you said, I mean, a great ceremony for him. And it's almost kind of fitting that, even though as unfortunate as it was that, Willie wasn't there, that, you had people like Anson Cotter, you had people from, Score Boston there kind of lifting his jersey to the rafters is kind of, it's almost symbolic in a way, right? Of, the impact he's had on so many others that have come after him that, they're the ones that also get to do it. So, again, a fantastic tribute to a great man who has left, an indelible mark on hockey. So again, unfortunately, he couldn't be there, but just the entire ceremony honoring a guy who's built quite a legacy for himself. It was great to see.
And he got an amazing fedora. So
Got
like
a
that was another.
fantastic fedora. Yeah.
He got everything as he deserves, and then as you said, I mean, just the impact he had after playing as well. I mean, that was just so big, and it's so long overdue that he got his number 22 retired. Should happen a long time ago, but great that it's happening now, and just an amazing night. Just the whole thing. Once the ceremony ended, though, once it ended, there wasn't a lot that Bruins fans would love in that game. On Tuesday night, again, lost 7-1 to the Hurricanes. What a way for like that streak to come to an end, right? Like, what a way for that just to all come crashing down, right? Like, you got Rask pulled after one period. You got 5 goals in the first, just a drubbing. But we'll get so I think maybe you tweeted this. Maybe you didn't tweet this. Maybe I'm imagining things now with this.
Just
But
screaming to the void somewhere.
I heard you screaming this.
Yes.
You can tell who watched the game and who didn't watch the game by who's blaming Tuukka Rask and who isn't, because it's weird if you watched the game and actually saw how the goals went in. You'd probably say, well, Rask could have played better, but he wasn't the reason that they were down 5-1 after the first. It really was deeper than that. There were real issues on defense there.
Yeah, and again, it's like, this is always the problem you have, and it's great to be back having this discourse every year now that Tuukka Rask is back, and that it has to be either one extreme or the other of like, it wasn't all on Rask, which means like you're completely defending him. Like, no, let's take a step back, Evan, and let's have a rational take here.
A
That was Rask.
Raskinal
Well,
take
yeah,
here.
was Rask good? No. Was he
Mm-mm.
rusty? He sure was. Was he the only reason why they let up 5 goals in the first period? Absolutely not.
No.
It's you can make that rational take of have it not be one primary culprit or the other. And that was he great? No, but mother of God, I think I tweeted yesterday. You could have had Duncan the Walrus in net, and he would have gotten obliterated. He would have gotten turned into a thing of blubber if he had to go out there.
Isn't he
And the
already
team,
blubber technically?
it should have been just a massive blubber. That's all it would be. I don't even know what blubber looks like. That's all he would have been.
No
So
face. The face would have
yeah,
been
it was,
gone.
it
It would
was
have been
just
taken out with
a
pucks.
gelatinous mold. Yeah, whatever blubber actually. I don't know. I didn't read National Geographic as a kid. I don't know what blubber actually is. That being said, Duncan would have had a rough time with that defense in front of them. As you said, I mean, just a complete debacle in terms of D zone, coverage, net front. You had guys missing assignments at the net front that was leading to easy one timer looks. And again, like you look at like Rask, he had that bad rebound, I think, on was it the Kotkaniemi goal, the first one, where it kind of like
Mhm.
bounced back out to him. Not great from Rask. You'd like to not have that puck, bounce back out to him. But also you had Matt Grzelcyk and Charlie McAvoy, your two probably most reliable guys, way outside, right? Kind of leaving him in that grade A spot. So again, it's a little bit of both in terms of Rask not being particularly shot, but you look at the defense and I mean, whether it's Seth Jarvis, who's a very talented young rookie, but I don't think he's like Sean Kemp and that like he should be driving past Connor Clifton and like dunking on him. Like, I don't think that should be happening. You've got Urho Vakanainen, who I think has been very strong for 5, 6 games now. This is very much a dose of reality, I think. I mean, whether it's kind of that pass into no man's land that things set up the Jarvis goal, or I think he was stuck, puck watching on one of the, I think maybe Sveshnikov's goal as well. Like, pretty much no one had a good night defensively. There's no like positive anywhere, or again, even like Charlie McAvoy, who's has strung together a couple of rough outings recently anyway. I think he's fighting something. I think, Bruce Cassidy's even mentioned that. Um, wasn't a banner night for pretty much anyone involved. So when you've got a lackluster night from so many key cogs in that defense, coupled with a team in Carolina who give them credit too. I mean, I don't know if that team just has like the Bruins circled on their calendar after getting smoked by them 2 out of the last 3 years in the playoffs, but that's a good team, man. Like whether it's just how balanced they are, how they play under Rod Brindamore. I mean, they're just a hassle to go against, right? Like even on like the penalty kill, I was telling Ty Anderson at the game yesterday, like that might be like the only penalty kill that's actually fun to watch to like go on the PK because like they pressure so much, they're so always moving their feet. You look even at 5-on-5 play, they always have active sticks, they're disrupting passes, play with great pace. Like that team is a handful to play against. So if you're have a night off in the defensive zone, if you're, not, accounting for your execution or missing, passes, not hitting, the right players in stride, they're going to bury you in a hurry. And it was just everything kind of unraveled for the Bruins in that game. That was just, that was a grade A pantsing, I think is how I described it on Twitter yesterday.
Yes, big drubbing. It's funny you mentioned the Vakanainen pass. I might even give him a pass on that one because that was, it wasn't the greatest pass, but like
Yeah.
Clifton clearly should have went towards it, and Clifton kind of hesitated, and then he
And
went
then
towards it a
Jarvis
little bit, and then blew by
yammed
it.
on him.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Just Vince Cartered him, LeBron James on Jason Terry type thing. But it begs the question is if this is a long-term issue, right? If this is a real thing. And I would say I don't think it is. I think the defense will fix itself a little bit. We'll get into later if that should now be a top target at the deadline. But I think what it kind of reinforces is that the Bruins are not a top tier team, right? This is a team that even though they just got wins over Nashville and Washington, and Tampa, they just played against this wagon of a Carolina team and got pantsed, meaning they're like high middle of the road now, right? Like before the streak, we were saying they were middle of the road for sure. During the streak, we said, oh, maybe they're like, you know, maybe they're top 10, 11, 12. Now we know they're high middle of the road. Would you come away with the same takeaway?
Yeah, I think they're in the mix, right? Which sometimes is all you're kind of asking for over the span of a season. That if you're in the mix, you have as good a shot as any to make a deep run. So, who knows what happens between now and the start of the playoffs? Like, they're a good team, but are they a contender? Maybe. Like, they're in that tier where they're in the mix, right? Are they in that elite favorite tier, right? Are they with Carolina, with I don't know, Colorado, like, even like Tampa, who they won, but still that's a team that you kind of know is going to be right there when the playoffs start if everyone's healthy for them, if everyone's not out of LTIR or what have you, like that, they're going to be in the mix. So are they at that level yet? I wouldn't say so. I mean, they've still got plenty of, key matchups. Like, who knows? Maybe they go to Colorado in a few weeks on the road and score 5 goals against them and you're feeling good about your chances. Like, they're at the very least in the mix, but you look at how they fared against Carolina, who's outscored them, I think 10-1 so far this year. Like, that's a
That's
that's a
good.
true measuring stick game against a team that, I mean, who knows when you get to the playoffs, right? It's the same with like Florida, who we think is a very good team, but like, I don't know. Do you trust Bobrovsky? Do you trust like that team in the playoffs? Who knows what happens with Frederick Anderson or what have you in the playoffs? Like, a lot can happen, right? But for the Bruins, it's always tough after a game like this because I think the first reaction is just to like take like the neuralizer from Men in Black and just like wipe the slate clean, right? Because like look at Carolina, I think on last Thursday they lost 6-0 to Columbus, who is not a very good team, right? Like Washington's coming in here, Bruins smoked them on the road just a few weeks ago. So these things happen, and usually if it's against at the hands of a very good team like Carolina, maybe it's a little bit of an easier pill to swallow. Of like, all right, didn't have your game at all. Great team came in, smoked you. You move on. It's like Carolina, I'm sure, was despondent after losing the game to Columbus, who's not that great. And what do? They come back and punch Boston in the face. So there's that rationale, which is probably the more, rational take in terms of how you move on from this. But beyond, I think what we're going to talk about in a little bit, but like you look further down the road at Carolina, who's probably you're going to be facing at some point further down the road, where you look at like the composition of this roster and whether moves need to be made. A loss like this at least starts, maybe festering some of those doubts you have about things that need to be addressed before this team can really make that next jump into being like an elite team in the NHL.
Yeah, and again, it's funny you mentioned that the jump into being such an elite team, and I do think sometimes these stinkers happen, right? Like that's part of how this works,
Yes.
and them getting sort of punched in the face. I do look at sort of. I want to take a little bit of a look ahead. It's probably kind of a safe bet that they might go for a defenseman at the deadline. Tough night for the D. So it comes back to we've talked about this a bit. We're kind of debating, right? Should they get a 2C or should they get a top 4 defenseman? And there's nights like Tuesday where you say, wait a second, this team really needs a defenseman. Do you think they go the route of a top 4 defenseman, which would take a lot, or do they go with a depth guy that could kind of solidify the third pairing or something?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the challenge in terms of like you can't get a 2C and a top four guy together. I think it all comes down to the price. Like, is acquiring a rental like Hurdle, which even then's going to cost a lot because he also has just been on a heater for like a month now. Like, is getting a rental like that plus like a solid third pairing guy the answer as opposed to like going all in for like Jacob Chikrin, right? Like, which last time I checked, I think I just saw this. Jeff Marek said what a potential like deal for Chikrin would be, and if it was Florida, you're looking at Spencer Knight, Anton
Ooh.
Lindell, and a first round pick. So
Ooh.
for Bruins fans who think that you can get him for DeBrusk, Vakanainen, a first, no, no, it's not gonna happen. Like Arizona, I think as we've seen with the OEL deal where they held off multiple deals, they didn't want to like give up any money. Eventually did, but also, got legit pieces back from Vancouver in that deal. They're not gonna trade a guy like him who's got three more year 3 more years on his contract for nothing, right? So I don't know whether it's like you focus on, you have to go down the list of what other defensemen might be available, and I don't think Klingberg's a guy they would target because he's like a offensive first kind of guy who's also numbers have been dipping a little bit anyway. Like if this team was like needed a like a spark on offense, and you look at them, but like they need like just a dependable. Like again, I think we've talked about this before. They need like a Dennis Seidenberg, right? Like that's
Yeah, and
exactly what you
they're
kind of need.
also stocked on the right side
Yeah,
for the top
exactly.
four. They don't need a top four right shot defenseman.
Yeah, if they need like anything, maybe it's like a third pairing, like, in terms of replacing Clifton, like a guy like that. But even then,
Yes.
like, I mean, look at like, was it last year where the Lightning got David Savard and people were like, all right, well, second and a fourth round pick, you got him for a rental and helps out, and he was what they got a first round pick for him. So like,
Yeah.
even those things are going to cost a lot. So for the Bruins, it's tough. Like you almost feel like the more pressing thing right now is just having another steady defenseman because I feel like you need it over the gauntlet of a season, but who knows, right? We could also get into a stretch, going forward where the Bruins play 4 games and Pasternak has 1 assist, Taylor Hall has no points, and they're worried about like what they need Hurdle or something else like that. So it's a tough kind of balancing act because you can't get both. Right? You can maybe you get like a top 4D and add like a bottom 6 guy or a middle 6 guy like Lawson Krause, maybe, but you just don't have the assets or even like even if like that's the actual asking price for like Jacob Chikrin, like you're looking at Swayman, Lysell, a first, and probably DeBrusque, right? Like,
Yeah. No, it's funny because
you
I'd
know,
mentioned this on Bruins Beat. I was like, to get you in the door, it would be like DeBrusque, Stanika, a first, and something else, right? To just
yeah,
get you in the door for Chikrin,
yeah,
not even like getting him. And that's going up against other teams with much better prospects. And that kind of goes back to you would have to include Swayman because he's your most valuable prospect.
hmm,
And that would be like what might get you a deal, right? If you did Swayman, Lysell, um, and a first. The problem is though, you don't know if Rask is staying past this year, right? Like that's ultimately your biggest issue is he doesn't seem like he's lying when he tells us he doesn't know what his future is past this year. So you can't really trust him with that. And that's fine. But it's not, I don't think, I've floated the idea of trading Swayman in the past, or just the idea of it that he's a valuable prospect. And I think now it's tough to do that because yes, you have Olmark signed for, somewhat long term. You don't know what the future of Rask is past this season. You also mentioned an interesting thing. And to me, I still go back to with what they have, you go for a second line center and you just get a depth dependable defenseman because if there's anything this team has had kill them in past playoff series, it's always the secondary scoring. And it feels as though as much as Eric Hall seems to fit with Pastrnak and Hall, it's still like can you rely on that against the Lightning in a series or Toronto in a series? I don't know. So that's why I kind of go back to you probably need a 2C and a depth defenseman who is dependable, which again, not easy to find.
no,
And to do both, that's also not easy. So, going to be interesting to see. And you tweeted this the other day. We're still like 2 months from the deadline.
yeah, it's March 21st. Like I always keep on forgetting how far down the road it is. Like I know it's usually like 4+ weeks before like the playoffs start. It's like you get a guy in for like you know, eight, nine,
Three-
8, 9 games, and you're ready to go for the playoffs. Like that's crazy how far down the road it is. So we've got quite a bit of time left before we start seeing actual tangible things happen. I think on the trade market.
I'm hoping the Bruins make all their moves before then because I believe March 21st is also selection day for men's and women's college hockey for the brackets. So really hoping that the Bruins do not do an 11th hour deal or any deal on the 21st. I hope they do everything before
You
because if
absolutely
that
know they
is
will.
yeah, they will. Just for me, that day is going to be absolutely bananas. But speaking of guys getting traded away, I'm getting a report right now that Patrice Bergeron could be headed to the Montreal Canadiens because the GM is Kent Hughes, his agent. Oh my God, Patrice Bergeron and Bleu Blanc and Rouge. I mean, this is incredible. Now, for people who are like stunned listening to this, that is not true. Kent Hughes, is he still Bergeron's
Not anymore. Not
agent? Not
not
anymore,
not
obviously.
now. But that'd be a bit of a conflict of interest.
No conflict of interest at all. You can still be an agent, the GM of a hockey team. What's wrong with that? But Kent Hughes it was Patrice Bergeron's longtime agent. He is now the GM of the Montreal Canadiens. So obviously everyone goes, oh, Bergeron's heading to the arch rival. And the answer is 99.9% no, he's not.
Yeah, no. I mean, but we could go down a whole list of reasons why. One, which like the narrative, like, oh my God, Patrice Bergeron is from Quebec, so he must want to go home at 1.1. He grew up in Quebec City, not Montreal. He grew up hating the Montreal Canadiens, so much so that he literally became an Avs fan for a while after they moved. Like, he's not a Habs fan. He did not grow up a Habs fan, so like that, that narrative was weak anyway. Two, even if it was for like a year to go home to Montreal, where he's not from, where his family is not from, I don't know what the appeal would be. Even if the Bruins hit a rebuild, that Bergeron would like to go to a team in Montreal that seems like a complete mess. That seems like they're many years away from actually fielding a legit team again, right? Like, don't let that cup run with Carey Price going off and Shea Weber and those guys distract from the fact that this team has an ugly rebuild ahead of them. So I don't know why Bergeron would go there. And of course, like, it's one thing if it's like your longtime coach or someone else like that, maybe, and that's the appeal. You see that in like, like football or something where a guy wants to go play for an old coach, or like, when has the agent been like the thing that is like swaying a guy's opinion to like pack up? Not even like a dude who's here for like 3-4 years and wants to go somewhere else, like Patrice Bergeron, who's going to have his jersey retired, and a Hall of Famer who's won a Stanley Cup here, who's been here forever, to be like, no, I got to go play for my friggin' agent.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah,
So
like,
and what would be the equivalent of that around here? Would that be like if you grew up in Connecticut and people are like, "Oh, he's going home to the Bruins"? Would that be the closest thing?
I
Or is that
guess,
even
right?
further?
Like, I mean, it's like what, like, I want to say, like, again, this is about my geography of family, but like, they're not
I know
like
what you're
an
talking
hour
about.
away. Like, it's still like they're not like right next to one another. They wouldn't have two teams back then in Quebec City and Montreal and be that close. So,
Yeah.
like, again, yeah, like the narrative, anything just because he's from that province means that he's a Habs fan. No, no. Like, and again, that's just like one like small part of it. The main part is like he's not going to go to Montreal. Like, guys, he's not going to Montreal.
It's a 3-hour drive.
Okay,
So it's
yeah.
not
So
Ottawa is
Yeah,
closer to Montreal.
yes,
So yeah, it is not close whatsoever in those terms. So that would be that would be like Connecticut maybe, or even like lower.
yeah.
That could be even further down. So yeah, no, Bergeron is not going to the Montreal Canadiens. Also, like, why would you uproot your family for that? Like, oh, we're
No,
gonna
I
go to
got
the shitty
sorry. Yeah,
Canadiens.
sorry. I gotta go play for my agent, who's not even the coach. Who's gonna like run into me like occasionally in the practice facility as he's like drinking his coffee.
Yeah, no, 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 he's not going to Montreal. Don't worry, he ain't going there. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think
Yeah,
he's gonna be a Bruin for life. I think most people can agree. And everyone goes, "Well, Ray Bork and Tom Brady weren't," and it's like both were very different people
yes.
in very different scenarios. I think if Ray Bork could have had it his way, he would have been here forever. But he kind of wanted to
If
win
you
one of
want
those
a
things
cup,
called a
yeah,
Stanley Cup,
yeah,
and then Brady is just Brady, and that's
yes,
like a totally different universe. So,
yes.
uh, Patrice Bergeron will be sticking around here. I don't think he's going anywhere else. Maybe he'll go to the Abs. That'd be pretty sick, honestly. Like,
That would make more sense history wise than Montreal
yes.
if you looked at the.
Wild that that's the case. But anyways, what can the people look forward to with you over at BSJ?
Yeah, we're gonna obviously be looking at how the Bruins rebound from that stinker of a game against Carolina. We'll be looking at how the roster pans out going forward because I think Nick Foligno could be back in the lineup. Who slots out? Obviously, Carson Coolman is now in Seattle, so best of wishes to him. So that's one less guy, but whether it's Anton Bleed or someone else, like who slots out if Foligno goes in. And again, we look at the schedule. We've got plenty of games on the docket. So every day we're going to have a breakdown, column, all that good stuff over at BSJ. So subscribe at bostonsportsjournal.com. Want to follow me on Twitter? You can do that at ConorRyan_93.
Go do all that. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Poke the Bear listeners. Have a great rest of your day.